Hey everybody, we're here for the first ever episode of the CornerBlue podcast. I'm Andrés Rico and I'm here with
Hugo Alvarado.
And we're here to create a space to commiserate, to complain, to enjoy the hardship and pain that comes with being a fan of La Selecta. It's a team that we all hold dear in our hearts. Things don't necessarily go our way all the time, but we're here to talk about it and make it maybe a little more accessible to you by doing it in English. Basically, I know Hugo from a while ago when I was doing some coverage for La Selecta in LA, and I bumped into him at the team hotel during some of the coverages. Hugo, do you want to talk to us a little bit about your involvement with the team throughout, and then we'll get into this thing.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's great that we are doing this. You know, we're trying to cater to those of us who either some were born in the U.S., like that might be the case with Andres. In my case, I came to the United States when I was very young. I've basically been in the United States most of my life, but I identify as a Salvadorian and feel the love for the La Selecta no matter what. You know, we're there unconditionally through the happy moments and the sad moments. So my involvement with La Selecta started back in 2010. So I've been a fan since I can remember. And basically, back in 2010, I had the idea that a lot of us, a lot of families left El Salvador during the Civil War, and football, soccer is such a big part of our culture over there. In fact, is the only sport that most people play. There are other sports, and no disrespect to the other sports, but the reality is that football is the sport in El Salvador.
We like basketball, man. We may not be tall enough for it, but
exactly. You know, I mean, we play basketball, but you know how that goes.
We're all
But you never know. That might be changing. So I basically thought to myself, we have all these immigrant families who left and they started their own families in the US, in Europe, in Australia. Some of those families have kids who probably play soccer at some level. So that's how my thought process began in the shower, and then
that's a little too much info.
and basically I had some website making skills, and with the help of my girlfriend back then, my current wife now,
Oh, okay. I was gonna say
we were like, I have this idea, maybe I could put a website together and basically scout for any Salvadorian player who plays at a professional level, semi-pro or college. And I went ahead and launched the website. I don't remember the exact month, but it was around October 2010. And it was sort of like an instant hit. Within a couple weeks, I was, getting calls from the major news outlets in El Salvador wanting to interview me and talk to me about the project, how it all came about. And then within another week, I was getting calls from the coaches and the Salvadorian Federation president wanting to know more about what I was doing. And within, I would say, a period of about 3 months, I managed to send the first couple of players to try out with the national team. And that's kind of how it all began. And here we are, still going strong and searching for Salvadorian players.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting, that whole process of, watching from afar and then taking that step to try and be involved and bring something positive to it. Because, yeah, like there's a ton of us outside of the homeland, and, a lot of players would want to, play for La Selecta, obviously, but then we're starting to see how culturally people maybe have been brought up in other countries, obviously, and they have an affinity more for their local national team, and maybe they don't get a shot right? Ideally, or for some reason, the doors haven't been opening to foreign-born Salvadoran players, and something like this, has been that opportunity to try and keep their careers going or aim for playing for a national team. And how many players have gone now? Like we have a whole bunch that have been born either in the U.S., mostly in the U.S., right? Pretty much all of them in the
Most of
U.S.
them, there's been a few European born, a few born in Australia. But yeah, I mean, I can't remember all of them right now. There's been a lot that have gone through some trial process. Some were not selected, some were, but were not able to go. But um, since Selecta Talent started, some of the players that have gone to the national team as a direct result of what I have done is Stephen Purdy. I think he might be like the most well known. I think I might be wrong, but this is what a lot of people have told me, that people think of Stephen Purdy and they think of Selecta Talent,
Mm-hmm.
because it was that we kind of both helped each other. Steve really helped me out a lot in getting Selecta Talent going, because he, from the first moment that I was able to get a hold of him, and I told him about my project, and he was in full support. And he said, "Yeah, let's do it. I want to play with the national team." And for me, it was like this amazing place to be, because I'd only remember seeing him in newspapers
Yeah.
with the German Salvadorian, because back
Yeah.
then a lot of people thought he was German.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve, Pablo Puñet, Dustin Correa, Marvin Baumgartner,
Mikey.
Richard Menjivar, Mike Orellana. Those are just some of the players that have played for the national team. Joaquin Rivas, more
Mm-hmm.
recently.
Mm-hmm.
Joaquin might have gone through like a little bit of a different process, but I was, one of the first to put him out there. I used to write news articles, and then other newspapers would kind of pick up on that. Lately, I kind of been focusing more on video, because people consume more video, and I made that my focus to present new players. But Joaquin Rivas is another one, and yeah, so those are the main ones that have uh, gotten to the national team as a result of what I started. And I think one important thing, and I know that in further episodes we're going to talk about certain things more in detail, and one frequent question that I'm asked, or comments that I read about, certain players are only playing for La Selecta because they were not good enough for the United States if they were
Mm-hmm.
born here. And I think there's a whole um, way to look at it, and I have a very different way of looking at it. And maybe this is not the episode to talk about that, but I think there's a lot that we can cover and talk about. The culture, how different our cultures are from those of us born in the motherland, and some other ones who live here and were born here, and there's a slightly different culture. And I think it's important to understand that before we jump into any conclusions or judging a player for a certain way that they came about to play for the national team.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of La Selecta in a sense, is that it's like this bridge. It's something that we can all have in common, whether we're at any point in the country. If we're a football fan, we have that pride in the team, or at least we follow it. Whether you're a casual fan, whether you're embarrassed so you don't care, or you're diehards and a little nuts, but there's a certain beauty to it of that it is this like vehicle of being connected to our culture one way or another. And that's the awesomeness of the recent years, where finally you're seeing players born elsewhere being able to come back and put on that kit. And it's been an interesting process observing it too, starting with Arturo Alvarez, and then moving on to the other players that have come along. and seeing that, yeah, it's a pretty pivotal cornerstone to the team, at least like the last three different processes, or elimination processes. So it is cool seeing how things have evolved into something like that. And that's the importance of having a platform or a space like this, is to be able to talk about it, because sometimes I think we hear too many opinions from one location, when I think we could bring a different angle to things, or mix it up a little bit, just so that we can all be involved in talking about this stuff.
Right, right. I think we have learned to look at La Selecta very differently. I mean, for me, and I'm sure you've probably encountered the same thing with the older generations. The people who saw El Mágico González, the one who lived through the through the 1982 World Cup. There's this idea now that everything surrounding La Selecta is negative. And I've encountered a lot of that. Like, why are you wasting your time?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, just think about it. Like, we live away from the country. We have so many different options in terms of entertainment or even teams to pick from. We all have our own local allegiances, depending on what part of the US per se you live in. But then on top of that, yeah, you have that fandom, I guess you could say, or that passion for the team. And yeah, sometimes people don't get it. You have a lot of people that, because of the bad results that have accompanied the team, or just a lot of the irrational or weird things that happen, like they're turned off by it. But I don't know, we're still here. We're like we're masochists, man, in that sense, where we're still rooting for the team and hoping for the best result every single time, even though there's plenty of obstacles in the way, and the results haven't necessarily come in yet. But ever so often we have something to cheer about, and I think that's why we're still pulling for the team. But yeah, we're like the Cleveland Browns fans of national teams in terms of footy, because you hear the stories about the 1970 World Cup and all the drama that happened leading up to just qualifying, all the drama going on there, and then all the weird things that happened because of the federativos, and then that was all replicated again in 82, with the armed conflict, but then also just the federation people and how they handled making it finally to the World Cup, and then the result that we're all burdened with, I guess, up to a point. But the irony is, despite that, we scored, and it's funny, there's been documentaries made about it. Our relatives still talk about that team as if it's like the Bulls in the 90s. There's this reverence for the team that has stood the test of time and not achieving much, but I mean, getting there was huge.
Right. Yeah, the one goal.
Yeah.
Some people can't understand why we celebrated that goal so much. Well, I wasn't even born
Me
then, but
Or
going through school with other Salvadorian schoolmates, you talk about it. It's like, yeah, el gol de la Selecta. And some people think it's funny, how Pelé Zapata celebrated that goal.
Yeah.
But I think when you really, go back and if you put yourself in their shoes and everything they went through prior to that World Cup, the war and I think some of the players said, the bombs would drop in the middle of games, and
just the logistics,
there was a lot to
social
celebrate.
aspect, and
Right.
then just everything, basically going upstream the whole time, and they still were able to I never saw the games live, obviously, but the two results against Belgium and Argentina following, like, that kind of gives you a better idea of the level of that team. But yeah, it's like, we're a team that hasn't had much glory. We made it to 2 World Cups, the first Central American Cup. We've won a couple gold medals here at the Caribbean Games, or done well in certain regional tournaments. But obviously there's a void in the trophy case, and then just the instability of the last years. It is hard to follow a team like this because you see all this surreal stuff going on where you're like, if this were like my local MLB team or NBA team, I'd be like, hell no, I'd rather bandwagon for like someone else, across the country or the other side of the state. But yeah, it is an interesting, it is an interesting story that even my wife, she's not Salvadoran. She looks at me and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Seriously, because
Yeah.
the tendency is we have negative results, but there's many reasons for it, and I think it obviously starts kind of with the top, at the federation, but we can
Yeah.
get into that, along the way.
Yeah. It's I think it's a feeling that is almost impossible to explain or put into words, to rationalize.
Yeah, there's no way to
Um,
rationalize it.
yeah, it's more like I mean, I'm even embarrassed to say this, but I've cried.
Yeah,
I mean, I've had tears come out when we either achieve a good result or when we are kicked out of a Gold Cup.
yeah,
It's like I remember that I can't remember the year right now, but we were playing Mexico and we played like the most amazing first half. That I was like, we can do this. I can't believe we're playing like that against Mexico. And then in the second half, we got slaughtered. And I think that was one of the
yeah. That
matches that
was
was
that was in
fixed.
Dallas, right? One of the
Yeah,
tricky ones where there's like,
yeah. So I mean, I just couldn't believe it. It's like I have to go out and go for a walk and breathe some fresh air because it's almost embarrassing to say as an adult you feel devastated inside because your
yeah.
national team that hasn't won anything in a very long time lost yet again. But it's just an emotion that is very hard for me to put into words.
Yeah, I think
And
it just goes back to identity in a sense, like
yeah,
you don't pick your national team kit,
right,
there's history to it, whether it's, been shared with you by your uncles, your dad, your grandparents, stuff like that, of them telling you of past glory days, right?
exactly,
But it's your history, it's your oral history, or
yeah,
my grandpa busted out Salvavision Productions tape back in the 90s of like in Mexico's best plays and stuff. And that's how I got acquainted with like the history of the team and stuff. But yeah, there's nothing to explain other than it's yours. That jersey, is yours. And that doesn't necessarily count with any other national team because you can't pick your national team. And yes, you can pick clubs and people do, especially international clubs and whatnot,
yeah,
but you don't pick your national team. And I think that's why, like, in general, it's something endearing, but yet we have to deal with a lot of BS along the way. Like I remember as a kid, anytime the US or sorry, Mexico would play El Salvador, and El Salvador would lose, oh man, I get so much shit from my friends at school, man. It was the
yeah,
worst. And you're still
same,
trying to like, like size up and be like, no, like we did okay. Like you saw
yeah,
that one shot at goal the whole
yeah,
game, but we
hmm,
made that. So it was really hard always to try and keep up and like, show a straight face or have some pride, but we're here,
exactly,
man. We don't pick it. It picks you, and you just have to deal with it if you like the sport, right?
right, right. Yeah, I remember also going back to school. We would have during lunch or during PE, we will have our games. And I went to a middle school that was basically a large mix of Central Americans, Salvadorians mostly, and Mexicans. And I remember we would, after those games, that we played against Mexico, we would always put a team together to play El Salvador against Mexico or whatever. And it was just, it's like you're playing at the schoolyard, but something inside of you feels like you're at the Cuscatlan playing,
Like
playing.
right at the start of recess, you guys are all standing like this.
Yeah, basically, yeah, that was the only thing left to do.
Mm,
But yeah, so I'm very very excited and looking forward to this because I'm hoping that we get to those fans. We know that
Yeah.
there's a lot out there to consume. There's a lot of online radio, podcast, you name it. But we want to get those fans that haven't found a place to fit necessarily because of the language barrier, because they support La Selecta, but maybe their Spanish is not that great, and so we want to know that there's a lot of us out there that feel the same or even more for La Selecta than those born over there.
Yeah,
That we
because distance makes the heart grow fonder,
Right. Yeah.
There is that level, obviously, of nostalgia too, especially when you go see a game. And where else are you going to sing the national anthem with more of your compatriots in the U.S. or outside of El Salvador? Like, where is that ever going to happen? Well, it happens at a Selecta match, and there's importance to that. And yeah, like more than anything, just creating a place to commiserate, because there's going to be it's a bumpy ride. It's always been a bumpy ride, and it's getting even bumpier now. The main thing is, having that space to talk about stuff, reflect. We can complain, bitch, and also celebrate, the positives once they come along. So, this is exciting to be able to do something like this.
So, we have many exciting subjects to talk about. One of them, the one that's present at the moment, is the CONCACAF format change, which really messed us up.
Big time, man.
Honestly,
BS, some BS right there.
Yeah, just look at it. If you really just COVID-19, you had to make a change to the format. Fine. Okay, perfect. So you have 6 teams that, according to your format, were qualified to the hexagonal. And out of those 6 teams, you affected in a negative way one team, and that one team is the Selecta. And then you benefited 28, 29 other teams that had absolutely nothing left to do in the qualifiers. So when you look at that, that's where you really wonder what was the thought process to create this new format? Was it really trying to be fair with everyone? I put a big question mark on that one. So that's one subject that we look forward to talking about in one of our episodes. We will also have some guests, players who are American born or born in other countries but now play for La Selecta. We want to get their perspective, maybe their thoughts about the format change, or just get their thoughts about
their experiences of having culture clash, if they had that when they got called up, what their processes have been of being called up, where they are with their careers, things like that, or former coaches, because we know we have a lot of former players that have become coaches that live here in the US. Maybe we're going to try and talk with them. Then also just a wide variety of characters, of Salvadoran characters here in the U.S. and abroad. We can talk about what it's like being a fan from far away and handling the ups and downs of it all.
Yeah, so please follow us in our social media when we have it ready.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but
we're not quite there yet, but definitely we look forward to sharing this space with all of you.
Yep. So it's been a pleasure, and hopefully this is the first of many. And thanks for listening to the Corner Blue.